The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Mondays here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Loaded show, plenty to get into and talk about from the world of recruiting. Nebraska redeeming themselves on the diamond. And yes, we have a start time for Nebraska v. CU. And we'll see you pacing yourself and, of course, starting an early tailgate to be all lathered up for 6:30 kick on NBC. Great to be with you here on Hail Varsity. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240. Can dial us up toll-free, 800-825-5865 across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Email chris@hailvarsity.com. And always watch the show, like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Give us a follow and can watch on Twitter as well at HVarsityRadio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. On his Twitter handle at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt, that is me. So, you are playing a little hurt. You're here. You've rubbed dirt on it. You've got a bit of a bug. You also, Elijah, left your debit card in safekeeping over the weekend. Who hasn't done that?
I mean, I feel like it's a common thing. It happens. You open a tab at the bar, you forget to close it, and you go, oh, they also have my card too. Oh, well, I guess I'm just going to have to spend 12 hours without a card. No big deal.
You're good. You're fine.
Big deal. And it was in safety.
Did you have a good time?
I had a great time. Well, let's lay it out here. Let's lay it out because it's a Monday, and we do have football news to get to, but we can get there in just a second. Let's lay it out. Saturday.
Don't do that the night of the Colorado game.
No, but Saturday afternoon. It's a beautiful day in Lincoln, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have to umpire this weekend. It's state baseball time. I didn't apply for state baseball this year, so I have this weekend off and likely next weekend as well. We'll see. I might pick up some youth games, depending on how much money I need. But spending a nice Saturday downtown at an establishment that our good friend Will Wilson works behind the bar at, and I trust Will with my card. Yeah, I'll open a tab, Will. You're back there behind the bar working hard. I trust you to keep everything in order, maybe to not put down one or two drinks on my tab. He put all of them down. I should have known, but and long story short, all my friends are getting out of there, and I have a decision to make. And getting my card from behind the bar did not factor into my decision-making process because my friends, two of them are in a band, and they have a studio space downtown. They're like, hey, now that sun's starting to go down, let's go back to my studio and let's jam out and drink a couple beers. I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Save some money. I've already spent too much on a Saturday afternoon because I'm drinking at a bar. Let's go have a couple beers and let's go listen to the jam out. They're all walking out the door, and I have a split-second decision to make, so I follow.
Hey, wait.
Exactly. So my card was
So you
behind.
Knowingly jetted without your card.
If I had a little bit more time to make the decision, I think maybe the fact that my card was behind the bar would have come to me quicker and be like, oh, give me a second. But they're all walking out the door, and I have a split-second decision to make. Gotta listen to some great music. I know you're a Stone Temple Pilots fan, Schmidt. They were playing some Stone Temple Pilots, hanging out, having a good time. It didn't hit me until I was heading home and grabbing some Taco Bell, and I opened my wallet and I go, ooh.
The 130 kick in the, oh no, I got to put the taco run on the credit card.
Yeah, but so I text Will and said, hey, I think you have my card. And he goes, yeah, it's all good. I'm working tomorrow. Just stop in tomorrow.
The bar thanks you.
So I picked up my card. We're all good. Will got himself.
Attention guests. Attention guests. This round's on Elijah Herbel.
Well, it wasn't that. It was Will got to decide how much my tip was for the evening. So I didn't have to even run my card the next day to show up and get my card back, and I pray he didn't tip himself $100.
We'll wait and see. It wasn't the old Ric Flair tip.
So lost my card also may have come down with a bit of a bug. I'm not sure if you can hear it in my voice. So I lost something, but I gained something, and we're here on Monday.
You sound like every Nebraska fan will sound Sunday morning after the Nebraska-Colorado game. You sound better than a lot of Nebraska fans will sound after the 2024 night extravaganza. Let's get into it. We'll get our starting five in the StreamYard here in a moment. But this is awesome. This is awesome for Nebraska. This is a great opportunity for the Big Red when it comes to the prime time, no pun intended, slot, the showcase, and the venom, the vitriol, the absolute hatred that does exist for Nebraska fans who are Nebraska nice. You're engaging, you're encouraging, you're absolutely welcoming, except for a couple of teams. You're not welcoming because you've been treated poorly over the years in Miami against Miami. You're not welcoming because of how you've been treated over the decades in Boulder. That's fact. So the old do unto others is in play here. And it is going to be electric. It is going to be off the hook. It is going to be is fantastic of a hostile environment as Nebraska's had. And you have to go back to 2014 Miami. And I don't know that 2021 Michigan was hostile, Elijah, but that was the last great night game in Lincoln. And you've had a handful of them. And I can remember back to the 92 Colorado game that is still the gold standard. As much blood was in the water for Nebraska-Miami, finally you get him to come to Lincoln. That was nuts. And I remember going to Gary and Nate, Gary Michaels' tailgate under the viaduct, and people were it was carnival atmosphere. I mean, folks were revved up. They were throwing whatever in the red Solo cups, and it was
throwing whatever in the red.
Oh, it was.
Good way to put it.
It was on. It was on, and that was at 3:30 for a 7 p.m. kick. Our dear friend Brad Edwards was here from ESPN because they did the radio game day in Lincoln. And, of course, Brock Ewart was part of the broadcast for ABC. And it was and all the Nebraska guys that were on the team, young and old, guys that were seniors on that 2014 team, Amir and company, I mean, they all grew up watching the U. Right? I mean, it was SC and it was the U that were powerhouses during their fandom, their impressionable fandom years. So they were so jacked to be able to play Miami at night, the mystique of the program. And it was great. Now, Bo was wound all sorts of tight that week, but Amir had his back because he ran for 200-plus yards. Randy Gregory was incredible against a first-round draft pick, Eric Flowers, at left tackle. And Malik Collins had a hell of a ball game as well. And Nebraska won in a bit of a shootout, 41-31. That was big time. 92 Colorado is there. The Ohio State game in 2011. And then the Michigan game. When we were at Media Days, even last year with those Michigan kids, and Blake Corum still smiles about just how juiced that game was. Mm-hmm. You're going to get that plus the dose of Miami 2014 and then the opportunity. Colorado may not be great this year, but it's still the prime factor. If you can drill Colorado on a national audience on NBC at 6:30, that is what it's all about. The fans are going to love it. The fans are going to show up. Fans are going to be starting now. I mean, I think someone just purchased 2 bags of ice for that second Saturday. Let's get our shout-outs in the StreamYard. NU Grandpa says, what's up? Nice to have you, NU Grandpa. Justin is here. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is in. Patrick, thank you for the shout-out on Twitter. Roger is here as well. So good to have Roger in. Husker David is in. Shout out TJ Lateef. Sal is here. Sal, good to have you. Sal's asking about David Sanders Jr. We will have thoughts on David Sanders Jr., how his visit went with Tim Verghese coming up here with Inside Nebraska. The other Dave is here. He says Greg McElroy just had a good interview with Coach Rule. Husker David also checks in. We'll get to all of your comments. Cliff, good to have you, brother. He says in 92, NU fans showered Colorado with beer cans. We've had enough of their crap.
I mean,
that's the feel, dude.
You don't know Memorial Stadium, how much of a home field advantage it is until it's a night game at Memorial Stadium.
It's a night game against a opponent that you want to drill.
Yes.
Who's with us?
We go to Husker Russ.
Husker Russ, good to have you. Thanks for calling.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I've worked in that 600 section up in the East Stadium since the Beauplin era when it started there in 2012 when they put the new seats up there. Mm-hmm. And I worked up there. Believe it or not, Andy Hoffman and his family sit up there, and I stood next to Andy. Rest in peace, Andy, at the Miami game. And I asked him, I said, why do you guys sit up here? And he said, we love it up here. So I stood next to him, and he voiced his displeasure and hatred for the Miami Hurricanes. And I am telling you, it was beautiful. But I am telling you, that stadium that night is probably the most venomous, loudest, filled with the most hatred and noisiest that I've been associated with since I started working there. And I've got to believe that September 7th, when slime time comes to town, that place is going to be rocking, and we're going to be 1-0, and we're going to get introduced back to college football that night. And I'm telling you, that night in 2014, where they honored the 94 team, mm-hmm. and we had a double tunnel walk, which was just ridiculous. And I'm telling you, there was nothing like that night. The Michigan game, we wanted that one, but that Miami game, I don't know that can be rivaled, but if it can, it's got to be September 7th, Memorial Stadium night game. Everybody's lathered up, and nobody sits down. And I
want to add one more thing
until we win.
One more thing that you can add here. Let's say Dylan Raiola does what's expected of him against UTEP. You'll have that factor as well of Nebraska maybe, assuming he does what you think he should do against a school like UTEP, which is maybe a big assumption to make for a freshman quarterback. But there might also be that secondary factor of Nebraska fans finally having a quarterback that they can believe in for the first time since
a while.
Adrian freshman year.
Right, and you're seeing Joel Klatt, and you're seeing CBS Sports. All of them are trying to get Nebraska in the top 25. So you talk about a chance to announce ourselves back to relevancy, back to the national stage, at least being in the conversation. You're talking about those 2 weeks, and people, don't worry about what you got to spend on tickets to get in that stadium. It'll be a memory you'll have for the rest of your life, and you work your whole year long, man, to go spend your money those first 2 weeks.
It'll be good.
Let's get these guys 2-0, and let's get rolling. But that night is going to rival 2014 Miami. I guarantee you that it's going to be tough.
Russ, thank you.
Because that was noisy.
it was noisy. It was pure passion. It was a 12th man trying to will him.
You use the exact word, passion, and people, we got to be in it from the first minute to the last. There can't be any lull. We cannot let Colorado come in and beat us in Lincoln again.
Don't even.
So
Nebraska
I'm
fans like, don't go there. Russ, appreciate the phone call. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all your work at Memorial Stadium for the years, dude. I'll tell you what, you have these elements. You've got the place, you have the opponent, and you put those together. Place, opponent, and stage.
I would say momentum. The momentum that you can feel within the Husker program, like that kind of the moment goes along with that.
Now, don't screw it up. Go win.
Do you know what game gets I think kind of pushed to the side in terms of Memorial Stadium being juiced in my lifetime? 2009 Oklahoma. That was
nuts.
Defensive battle.
7-3.
That 10-3, I think. I think.
Yeah. They held them to a field goal, 5 interceptions, but they had the Prince of Mukamara return to the one.
Yeah,
until they got the touchdown.
I wasn't in the stadium, but that's one of the only times I can remember being at my dad's house, which is sort of down near Alphabet Town.
Mm-hmm.
You could hear it, the stadium from there, and there's only a handful of times we're a couple miles away. The wind has to be blowing in the right way, and the stadium has to be a certain amount of juice. But remember that one, hearing that from outside the stadium, being like, wow, that stadium is rocking right now.
We will get into plenty more with Nebraska-Colorado. We will dive into Husker baseball. Tim Verghese on the recruiting front. Big weekend for Nebraska. They got a yes from a high-level quarterback. They're making the number one offensive tackle think about his time in Lincoln. Charlie McBride, we'll talk to him about night games in Lincoln, and then Jay Moore with us in hour 2. But Inside Nebraska's Tim Verghese here in about 5 minutes. Jeff Snitley weighs in back on the Nebraska baseball bandwagon. Let us highlight what was very real this weekend. Starting pitching for Husker baseball, 19 in the third innings, 12 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned, 5 walks, 19 strikeouts. Tip your cap, Mr. Christo. You were nuts yesterday. You were flat out fantastic on the heels of what Brockett gave you, McConaughey and Caleb Clark. So as bad as things felt Saturday morning after that horrible ninth, you got one out with Mr. Grand Island, Cole Evans, the walk-off Saturday, and you finished the job on Sunday for Nebraska to stay in it. Tim Verghese recruiting next on Hail Varsity.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you,
on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Tim Verghese with us. Inside Nebraska, rivals, and find Tim on Twitter at Tim Verghese. That was a money, that animal Blundetto reference from The Sopranos after poor Steve Buscemi got jocked in the face. Tim, well played, sir.
Appreciate you. In all seriousness, I hope whoever did that to poor Steve is found, because that is a wonderful man.
I love Buscemi as well, but I'm scrolling through. Oh, there's a Soprano reference with Phil. So that was good. But you've been busy, dude. Great coverage as always with Nebraska recruiting, and a monster visit this weekend with David Sanders Jr. and a awesome commit for Nebraska football with TJ Lateef. Let's start with Lateef. The last couple of Mondays we've had you on Lateef Watch. Nebraska got the yes not too long after they took the series from Indiana with baseball, just a full news day.
And credit to Tim. I think last week he said it feels like a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
So Tim, breaking news before news. I love it. But what comes down to this yes for Nebraska with Lateef? Not to go over old thoughts with this question, Tim, but I mean, Nebraska really beat out some pretty high names in this quarterback race, didn't they?
Yeah. They definitely did. I think, and you even go back and look. I think it's still on his profile. You know, Lateef announced a top 6 back in January that didn't include Nebraska. That's around the same time that Glenn Thomas came in, and him and Marcus Satterfield started watching film. They kind of honed in on TJ as, you know, the quarterback that they like in this class. There was another quarterback that kind of emerged, was Madden. You know, we've talked about him a couple of times. But it kind of came down to those two, and felt pretty obvious that, you know, TJ was the top target. And, you know, pretty much since offering him, and, you know, Coach Thomas has been in touch. I think Nebraska kind of had that top spot. Then that official visit kind of just cemented them as, you know, the place for him. I think it checked every box he had. He was already pretty set on the development. He was already pretty set on the situation. He just kind of had to see it for himself. And once he did that, I think it just kind of all came together for him.
How do you convince a high-level quarterback such as Lateef that, I mean, with all these guys, 4- and 5-star quarterbacks, they've had people telling them for years how good they are and how much of a difference maker they're going to be. How did Rural, Satterfield, and Thomas pull off the, you know what, might be best for you to sit for a couple of years, because that's got to be a part of the conversation, knowing who Raiola is, knowing what that guy is going to be, that you're going to come in and compete, but a guy in Lateef, a high 4-star, being comfortable with sitting for a couple of years if that's what ends up happening. How do you have that conversation?
It's tough. It is definitely tough. Some of these guys, they kind of realize as they're going through the process kind of what they need to work on, what they need to do. For TJ, for example, I think regardless of where he went, I think it was becoming obvious to him that he may have to sit at least for a year just to get that weight on, learn the playbook, do all of that. But more than anything, I think what helped Nebraska here is just his trust in Glenn Thomas's development specifically, and his relationship with him and Satterfield. I think for him, he stated, I want to play at the next level. Like, I want to play early at the next level. But he also understands that development is the most important thing. And if that requires sitting a year or two to develop and understanding, again, I think what Nebraska's done really well is showcasing just how many reps these guys are getting in spring, with those 3 sub teams. Danny Kalen was, technically like the 3rd string quarterback at this point. He's repping, like, he's got like first team quarterback reps, So that's the thing with Lateef, is just like he's going to get that development. And I think that kind of helped Nebraska a lot.
So you're going to get better, and you're going to get all the practice that you'd get if you were a starter at an Auburn, a Colorado, a Florida State, a Georgia, an Ole Miss, at A&M, and Arizona. That's the list that Nebraska beat out. Ascent in the stream laid out the quarterback derby for him. Colorado really wanted this kid, didn't they?
Yes. More than anything, I think this is a big win over Colorado. I think I mentioned it on the radio last week too, but kind of felt officially that things were officially trending Nebraska's way when Colorado made a new quarterback offer, and they're on the road evaluating quarterbacks now. Their staff hasn't done a whole lot of on-the-road recruiting, and they're starting to do that a little more this spring, which kind of tells you kind of where the board's shifting for them. They're not as, like a program like Nebraska, it's kind of hard to see what the board is sometimes because they offer so many guys. But Colorado, it's pretty obvious kind of what their board looks like because they offer pretty much as soon as they move off a guy.
Spend a minute on Lateef, if you could, Tim, with just what you like about his skill set. What does he do well? As you've covered a lot of signal callers, you've covered recruiting in different markets, but college football hotbeds. What is special, in your opinion, about Lateef?
The special, I would say the accuracy, the touch, the velocity, just the polish he has as a processor and a thrower of the football. Kind of touched on it last week. Again, this isn't a guy that's going to light it up or as in he's not going to throw bombs on you necessarily, but he's going to get all of those throws you need made in the playbook. He's going to get all of those. He's going to read through, 3-4 reads. He can get through it quick. Footwork needs some work. That's probably the one thing I would say, probably little need some work on the footwork, need some work, just again, like I said, adding weight, some of that play strength stuff. But really like the way he sees the field. For a short, not a short, he's 6'2", before a shorter-ish quarterback. He throws over the middle pretty well. Good velocity, good touch, isn't afraid to just attack over the middle. Just a very safe quarterback, I would say. He's going to get you the ball where it needs to go, on that. There's the NFL QBs that do that, the Jared Goffs, the CJ Strouds, just guys that are consistently accurate and consistently, just know where to go with the ball.
It's Tim Verghese with us here talking some recruiting on Hail Varsity Radio. Make sure to find him, follow him on Twitter at Tim Verghese. That's Verghese at Tim Verghese on Twitter. And Tim, let's switch gears here and discuss the recruiting weekend. A big-time offensive tackle in David Sanders, another kid that plays offensive tackle, Broderick Scholl from down in Oklahoma. And I believe Clayton was also in town this weekend. What are you hearing about the guys that were in town this weekend? Obviously, Sanders being the big one. You've heard some pretty positive thoughts from him coming out of the weekend. Just what are you hearing regarding the weekend, the 3 guys that were in town?
Yeah, it was a good weekend for all 3. I think for Nebraska was in a different place with all 3. So with Clayton, this was Clayton's first time seeing Nebraska, but Nebraska's been interested. And this is a kid that, in my opinion, I think he's at the very start of blowing up. Like Nebraska offered earlier this spring, Wisconsin offered recently. While he was flying back from Nebraska, Florida State offered. So those big 3 in Florida are starting to get involved. I think people are starting to circle back on that junior film, kind of see the explosiveness he's got as an edge rusher. His first visit from Nebraska did a really good. His first visit with Nebraska sets the bar high. I think he's got official visits planned to USF, UCF, and Duke, I believe, as well. But kind of the way I put it in, I guess it's not out yet, but in a way, in a notes piece I'm putting up tomorrow. The way I've kind of put it is I think Nebraska's kind of set a bar that it's going to be really, really tough to match right now. A school like Florida State could, a school, like a big Power 5 program closer to home possibly could. But of the other schools currently in line to get an OV, I don't see it. I don't see them matching what Nebraska had to offer, just in terms of just the experience and making him feel comfortable so far from home, and the development they've kind of talked about him with. Scholl, this was another one. Scholl's visited a couple times at this point. Nebraska earning this visit was a good sign, and then coming out of the visit, he's Nebraska's up there for him. I mean, it's one of those. Nebraska had ground to make up on Auburn specifically. I think they've done that this weekend. I think it's those two. A&M's still in it. A&M's pushing. Texas Tech still pushing. It kind of seems like it's coming down to Auburn, Nebraska. He's got an Auburn OV planned. We'll see if Auburn can get over that, or if Nebraska's pursuit these next couple of weeks is enough to just hold off the Tigers. As for Sanders, haven't talked with him directly. Talked to some people just coming out of the weekend about how he felt, and going into the weekend, I just, the way it was worded to me from people close to the situation was, this is solely like not almost solely, but this is a lot of Dylan Raiola's doing, just the visit happening. Dylan's been recruiting or been in touch with Sanders since Dylan was committed at Georgia. He was peer recruiting Sanders to come join him at Georgia. They visited Georgia together. So they've maintained this relationship for a couple, for about a year or so now. And so these last couple of months, Dylan's just been directly in touch on, hey, come to Nebraska. This was something that I was made aware of pretty early on the beat, was like, hey, Dylan and David are close, and there's like a real relationship there. Just like, that's going to be a national name that if Nebraska has a good year, they could get back in on. It didn't even take them having a good year. It took one spring game for, this to kind of come together. As far as whether or not Nebraska made up ground, I think Nebraska impressed, from what I've heard, enough that Nebraska's actually in consideration. But something I think people need to remember here is, like, Sanders has been regarded as this like top offensive tackle prospect for a couple years now. Nebraska just got involved in February. Some of these other schools, Georgia, Clemson, Tennessee, they've been involved for years. They've got like multi-year long relationships with him and his family. They're experts at this whole process at this point. They know exactly how to handle this recruitment, what they're looking for. They've stated on the record multiple times, Ohio State's been a program they're considering, and they've stated multiple times that distance is a factor for them. And it took 4 or 5 visits to Ohio State, including one last week. It took multiple visits for that family to feel comfortable with, hey, you know what, Ohio State could be like a legitimate destination for us. That's essentially what Nebraska has to do here now, is they have to be able to earn more visits, make them feel more comfortable on campus for them to have, staying power here. But that's the thing. Now we'll just have to find out, can Nebraska get him back on campus? Where do they stand compared to the top 6 he's had? And, what more can, is this like, is it Dylan and Donovan kind of taking this over? Is this, some of the linemen kind of, stepping in there and peer recruiting him? Like, what more can Nebraska do? That's what I'm curious to find out, just as much as everyone else.
Tim, about 30 seconds, bud. Timeline here. I look at the rest of the summertime: Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee, Bama, Ohio State. Then July happens. When does Sanders want to make his announcement?
He's kept it kind of fluid. He's talked about like August, September as a potential decision date. I know he wants to get it done either early or right before his senior year, just because he's enrolling early. He just wants to have it done so he can focus on, having a good senior year with his teammates. But yeah, that's kind of the timeline for him. But he's also, just from the read I've gotten based on the way he's talking about the top schools, Nebraska, being such a late new inclusion to that recruitment, he's certainly, and this is with any of these top 5-star type guys, any of these guys, this they could end up, just pushing it till signing day. Like Sanders very much has. I get the read. This is a guy that could very much push this to signing day, or like whatever he commits to. If he does end up committing, before the season, it's not the end for him. Like that'll be a recruitment that'll go probably through the moment he signs. Schools tamper, but it'll go through at least even when he signs papers.
Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Tim, appreciate you much. Great stuff today.
Of course.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Awesome recruiting rundown by Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. That'll be posted on the podcast page, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Huskers got their quarterback. They're in play for the number one offensive tackle in the country, Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And we welcome in with the Lincoln Saltdogs, new general manager, general manager since 2022, Shane Tritz, joining us on the stream and on the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Shane, good to spend a few minutes with you, man. Thanks for jumping on the stream with us. And season's already underway. How are you doing?
I appreciate it, guys. Glad to join you here. It's every opening day is a special one, and every opening day is going to come right up to the last minute. A little crazy stuff running here or there, but one way or another, we'll definitely be ready and excited for another season here with the Saltdogs.
Well, Shane, I like the way Schmidt said it as new general manager, but not really new general manager. You had some time to work with Charlie Meyer, the previous general manager, and now you really had a chance to get your feet wet. Does it feel like that? Do you feel like you're settled in and you've, I don't want to say finally got the hang of things, but what's your comfort level heading into the 2024 season as you compare it to where you were at this time last year?
I really do. Like I said, Charlie's been a great mentor. Obviously, even when I was in Sioux City, me and Charlie, we've known each other since 2001 when the Saltdogs started. I actually started with the Sioux City franchise back in 1999. So we've known each other. Comfort level, it's amazing how many things that Lincoln and Sioux City did prior to me joining here. So really the comfort level is really high now. And like I said, me and Charlie still daily work. He'll take care of this. I'll take care of that. It's just a little bit more of me and a little bit less of him. But no, it's a great working relationship and happy to be here.
Shane, tell us about this year's squad and some of the excitement and what folks can just really enjoy. Family friendly, as always, the Saltdogs, and so many great promotions, giveaways, and just I tell you what, there's not a night that isn't a great night for baseball.
No doubt. I mean, we've, affordable family fun. Those are the three things that, Lincoln, the pillars they've built everything on. And again, that's going to be the case here in 2024. There's something for everyone. That's the biggest thing. From my side of things, we have 50 entertainment nights. Some people might look at it 50 baseball games. We have 50 entertainment nights. And I've told my staff from day one, there are only certain things we can control, really can't control what happens on the field. Brett Jody, Cash Beecham, the coaching staff, they take care of that aspect. But on-field wise, we only got 12 returners from the 2023 season, so a whole new roster. So far, so good. We obviously opened the season this past weekend up at Fargo. Took 2 out of 3 from Fargo. We started a 3-game stand with Sioux City tonight. A little maybe revenge game here, Shane. Sioux City can't the whole deal, but
it's kind of a revenge theme with Colorado, Nebraska at night. So
right, it really is.
Jump
but, my
in.
time in Sioux City was phenomenal. Trust me, I enjoy the staff up there. John Roos, the owner up there, has done a phenomenal job. But no, being in Sioux City, my parents still live in Sioux City. It was funny. My dad came down here this past week, and I had a daughter graduate. I had a graduation party for my daughter from Waverly. He had Saltdogs. He had a Saltdogs shirt on, an Explorers hat on. I'm like, Dad, you can't do that. but no, I wish Sioux City well and everything. I still talk to those guys a lot. Tom Backmeyer's new GM up there, Steve Montgomery, Bobby Post, real good friends of mine. But again, you look at us on the field, we're pretty young. I'll be honest. We got 12 returning guys. We're pretty young, but off to a great start with that 2-1 mark up in Fargo. But when you look at the season, everything goes back to that affordable family fun. I mean, mini military Mondays, special for the military and kids under 12 on Mondays. You get your Triple Play Tuesdays where you donate a non-perishable item in the month of May, get a free GA ticket. We got to deal with the YMCA. We got to deal with kids' toys. We have a deal with school supplies. So each month there's a different way fans can get a free GA ticket by donating to a nonprofit. You got your Winter Wednesdays, your Thirsty Thursdays. Obviously, Cornhead Lager, 1890, Thirsty Thursdays this year. So We welcome them as a sponsor and appreciate their support. Fireworks Friday, Free Shirt Friday, Souvenir Saturdays, Family Fun Day. So when we talk about it's literally 7 days a week, affordable, family, and fun.
Shane, whenever I look at the American Association this year, a lot of offense from a lot of teams. And you talked about the first weekend performance. The pitching staff didn't allow more than 4 runs in any of the 3 games, and that's one place where I really notice a difference in this roster. It's a lot of new faces among that pitching staff, both in the bullpen and your starters. Tell me about the offseason, reworking that. Those guys now working with Brett Jody, who's been around for a couple of seasons now. Tell me about that new pitching staff and what you hope to expect from them this season, because they're really off to a strong start in a league where offense tends to pay the bills in the American Association. A lot of great hitting teams.
No question. I mean, Cass Beecham came back on board here this year. Him and Brett, they build this roster. These guys talk 40 times a day just to find that right fit. And I believe what they believe, pitching and defense wins games. Obviously, that they spent a lot of time this year rebuilding the starting rotation and the bullpen. Let's be honest, if something doesn't work, the adjustments have to be made, and Brett and Cash made those adjustments coming into 2024. You look back at our team last year, I think we swung the bat really well last year when there was some, pitching. It was pitching last year, so that's where Brett had his emphasis for this year, and that seems to be a strong point. But again, Monday versus Tuesday, you never know how it is. I've always said pitching and defense, you can score 12 runs, but if you give up 13, you still lose. So pitching and defense, this was built on, and just putting good character guys on the field, that's something important to Brett, Charlie and myself, as far as, guys that are going to represent the Lincoln community in a positive way too. But so far, so good. But one thing I do say, this is 100 games. We got 97 more to go. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, but so far so good. And, we'll go, like I said, 3-game set starting in Sioux City tonight, and welcome everybody back here for our home opener this Thursday.
Shane Tritz with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Roadshow Thursday for the home opener. We'll be broadcasting live from Haymarket, getting ready for the Dogs home opener. Shane Tritz with us here.
We might even get a Connor Clark appearance on Thursday.
I think so. We're going to trank dart Connor and drag him into his booth.
Connor Clark's 2-1 as well. We got to give Connor some credit. He's 2-1 as well. I sent him a text after his first called W, I told him.
Good. Well, I think the way to keep those W's coming and with Connor is you can either have a seat on the bus or under the bus as far as where the luggage is. You better keep on winning. But in all seriousness, you said you have 50 entertainment opportunities. And Shane, it's been just awesome over the years. And also since your time with the Dogs, just some of the ideas you guys have come up with to appeal to about any or every audience.
Who could forget the Swift Dogs night?
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
right.
It's elbow to elbow, man.
It is. And like I said, when we talk about those entertainment nights, I mean, you got to really market to the non-baseball fans. To be honest, I mean, we got to make sure there's something for everyone, whether it's the Meritus Fun Zone for the kids, whether it's a family special on Sunday for affordability for the parents, the giveaways on Saturdays. Everybody likes, the free giveaway items. And we got a great lineup of those this Saturday. In fact, we sold more. We have 9 Saturdays. We have 11 giveaways this year. So our sales staff did a phenomenal job as far as making sure we can kind of go on top of them 9. But it's all about the affordable family fun and that experience at the ballpark. And I'm going to be honest, there's fans that regardless, win or lose, they're here for different reasons. So we got to make sure we satisfy those reasons as well.
Well, Schmidt and I will be there for a 9-beer, 9-hot dog, 9-inning challenge. That's why we're coming out this summer.
Shane's like, stay away, both of you.
Bring it on. Let's go.
From me, if we do the 999. But Shane, saltdogs.com, folks can jump online or call the ticket office and get locked in for a weekend if they got family coming in or they want to check out the schedule, the opponents, and, of course, the Monday through weekend specials you offer.
No question. Saltdogs.com is where it's all at. You'll find the promotions. You'll find the game information. You'll be able to get tickets. Obviously, you can stop by Haymarket Park. We're here pretty much every day. But stop by the box office, call the 474-BALL-2255 or saltdogs.com. You'll find everything you need there right on saltdogs.com.
Shane, we'll do this again. Thanks for giving us some time today.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
There he is, Shane Tritz, GM with the Salt Dogs. We'll wind down hour 1 next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Great stuff from Shane Tritz, GM for the Salt Dogs. Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Rivals.com on Nebraska's big recruiting weekend. TJ Lateef in. Nebraska in hot pursuit for David Sanders. Nebraska-Colorado kickoff 6:30. We've dove into that. Lots of comments we'll still get to in the stream. And your email's chris@hailvarsity.com. We'll talk to Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Monday with Charlie in 10 minutes. We'll get Uncle Charlie's take. He was on the sideline there for that 92 Halloween game night when the Buffs kicked off against Nebraska in Memorial Stadium at night. And it's a special spot. Yes, Jay Moore with us in Hour 2. That Blackshirt Hour continues here in about 10 minutes or so. Reminder about your friends with the Supernovas. Your hometown pro volleyball team, the Omaha Supernovas, they've locked in their spot for the inaugural Pro Volleyball Federation Championship to take place in the great city of Omaha, May 15th and May 18th. That's at CHI Center. The Supernovas going to battle out with their volleyball best for PVV supremacy and $1 million. You can get your all-session single-match tickets now. Log on, supernovas.com. Secure your tickets and become part of history today. And don't wait. 15th just around the corner, the 18th just around the corner. Get in on it at CHI in Omaha with the Supernovas. Supernovas.com is what you log on to get those seats.
Schmidt, before we get out of here this hour, I want to pose the question to you. Are there any underappreciated home games at Memorial Stadium that stand out in your memory? Not ones that
I was not at this. I was actually working in South Dakota in 2002.
Okay.
But that was the infamous 7-7 season for Nebraska, where Nebraska won a night game at A&M. Somehow they were down by a boatload of points and furious comeback in 2002. But it was, I think mid-October, maybe even early part of November. But Chris Sims in Texas came to town, and, of course, that was another night game. I think the 98 game against Ricky Williams was also a night game where they broke Nebraska's win streak of 47 games. So Texas is always in that category, like Colorado, like Miami. Team you love to hate, a team you want to beat from a fan base perspective. And Nebraska and Jamal Lord and Matt Harrion, I mean, they played out of their mind. The defense was good. Texas made a play, an interception in the end zone. At the very end, DeJuan Gross almost returned a punt to win it. And I remember watching that at a bar in Sioux City. Actually, I had met my fiance, future wife, halfway between where I was in South Dakota and where she was going to grad school in Lincoln. So we watched the game at a Applebee's. And I'm like, oh, wow, they're going to do this. They're going to pull it off. And then they fell short. But that team that went 7-7 gave every inch they could. And they had no business being in the game with Texas, and they damn near won it. I think that was an appreciated game that hurt if you're a Nebraska fan. Nebraska played out of their mind that night.
One that I always think of, I can't remember if it was 2011 or 2012, but Michigan State comes to town with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
It was a 2:30 kick, so it wasn't as...
By the time it finished, it was night.
Yeah.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Into Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We'll get to some of your stream comments, emails. Lots of recruiting to talk about. Big weekend for the Big Red. Kickoff times are trickling out. Of course, Nebraska-Colorado, a night game. Husker baseball doing work against IU. All of it this hour as well. It's the Blackshirt Hour. We get things kicked off with Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. A Monday with Charlie. Coach, good to have you in. How you doing? Coach, we have you now. How you doing?
Oh God, I'm having a great time.
You sound like it.
I just it just keeps raining. It stops, it goes, it stops, it goes. So I decided I'd go out and sit on the deck when it doesn't rain. But all my seats are all wet out there and everything. So I spent the time cleaning those and turning them over, making it comfortable, and then I was trying to explain to him that my watch, I got one of these fancy watches.
Mm-hmm.
You get electrocuted every time somebody calls.
Well,
so I don't know. It works.
Well, sorry about that. Out in the rain, we're giving you a little buzz there.
You could also argue that means we are electrifying on Monday afternoons when it's time to give Charlie a call.
Whatever you want to tell yourself, Elijah.
Well, that's what these watches do now. They tell you they got a phone call. The only problem is my watch goes off about 3 or 4 calls, rings before the phone rings.
Gotcha.
So,
well, hey, it's a warning. It's a warning. There should be a warning with night games against Colorado. I say that half jokingly, Coach McBride, but the kickoff time announced 6:30 this year as the Buffs come to Lincoln at night. What do you think? And what do you think of Memorial Stadium all lit up more ways than one, possibly?
I like it. I like them all at night. I was at Arizona State for 3 years, and we had every one of our home games at night.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing it does, it messes up the people from Western Nebraska, and it did the same down there. It messed them up. The only problem was the bars closed too soon after the game.
That's pretty good. Oh, they'll be alive and well in Lincoln. But Coach, you've been on the sidelines for what Memorial Stadium can be. I mean, you've had great teams, but when you got a big time opponent, and let's be honest, a team that not a lot of Nebraskans have love for. I think of that Miami game in 2014 where you guys were all back and you got honored for the '94 season, and then of course you've lived a lot of those Colorado-Nebraska night games. I think of the '92 game where you drilled Colorado, and that thing it's still legendary from what I'm told.
Yeah, well, the worst one I ever spent was 17 below zero at Boulder, and we tied 19-19, I think it was. I mean, it was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
That game. I mean, and I had a bad experience that my mother told me she'd never go to my school again. Some guy poured a beer on her head after they scored on an extra, blocked a point and got 2 points to tie it. And then he poured a beer on my mother's head. I said, "Oh, that's really good. He's a good guy. She's only 80, and he's pouring beer on her because she's got a red coat on." I figured, well, if that's the way they are, I'm going to change my attitude.
I bet. But let's spend a minute here. What does the opportunity? What opportunity does Nebraska have in front of them with Dion and the Buffs coming in this early in the season? I mean, I know you don't want to overhype or make too much out of it, but it's really a cool potential moment for Nebraska and this team this season.
Well, they're going to get a better TV audience, that's for sure.
Right.
That's one thing and for recruiting purposes, it'll be good. The thing is, you got to win the game, and that's where you'll start getting a few of those yourself out in front of the California kids if you're going to recruit out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll help an awful lot. And to be at night, it helps anyway, no matter what it is, because it's usually one of the only games that's on, and and everybody's going to watch it. So, it's going to be an interesting thing. Of course, both states will watch it. I don't know. I guess the guys will take their TVs and put them in their tractors and go like heck at night and just watch the game while they're working.
Mm-hmm.
It's Coach Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio as we react Nebraska-Colorado. It's a night game on NBC in week 2. And Charlie, we've talked a little bit about how a night game changes things for the fans. You have all day to get yourself ready to find your favorite spot downtown, put a couple cold ones down. How does it change what's going on within the team, within the locker room. You have all day to think about this game. You have all day to be excited. And then when you roll out there for pregame warm-ups, Husker fans show up early for those night games, and they really bring the juice. How does the feeling inside a locker room change with a really charged-up night game at Memorial Stadium?
Well, let me tell you something. That's not the easiest thing in the world to do, and of course the pros have to do it a lot too. But to sit around all day, sometimes you have your meeting and you can only do so much. You want to get them off their feet and everything, and by getting them off their feet, they get a little loggy and tired, and some guys are yawning, and everything seems bad now. In '94, when we went and played at night in the Orange Bowl and won the national championship, they had the radio on, and the kids were all laying in the bus, sleeping, laying down. I mean, I thought, oh, my brother, this is beautiful. Everybody's asleep. But they get up quick, and when you're younger, I guess it's about. I know when I was there, we played in the Orange Bowl, and I was on the second bus, and they got lost.
Oh no!
Believe it or not, they were taping us on the sideline during the game, before the game, and during the first part of the game.
Well, that's not good. Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Is there a night game that you remember more than others? I know it's probably a blur with them, but is there a night game that's special in your memory?
Well, there's just little stupid things that I remember a lot of times. So one of our night games was actually at Oklahoma, and they have a huge crown in their field. And I looked across the field, and I couldn't even see their knees. And I bet you, I mean, it was. I didn't realize how bad it was. Of course, then they're planning on water running off and all this stuff. But what happened was that and you'll see it happen if any games that it will happen. Quarterbacks get up on that thing and they throw the ball high and out about when they're throwing the outcuts and stuff, and they really have to, really work at practicing on that field, even though they do before the game. It just seems like in a game that the thing's flying and going all over the place. But I don't know, of any games that really, I was, the 19-0 game at Arizona State is one of the bad dreams I've had. And, and everybody says, well, the offense stunk. And I'll tell you what, they got 19 points, so I'd say the defense stunk. That's the way I put it. I mean, if they don't score, they don't win. And it's just like a golf game. You sit there and play even up all the way, and all of a sudden some guy will pop and get an eagle or a birdie, and it's over. And that's pretty much the way it is in football that way too. At the end of the game, everybody says watch a basketball game. The last 4 minutes, you'll see the whole game. So I don't know about the thing that happens at night. I heard is actually sometimes becomes a mystery to everybody because people play better, and it's a little different to seeing the ball. You have to get early in the game. You got to get your eyes adjusted to the speed. It comes at you faster, and when you're like punts come down faster, and they just like come out of the dark to you, and when you're catching the ball across the middle, it just seems like in early in the game when you're not used to playing at night. Then that's when you really notice that, wow, that thing is right here, right now. Mm-hmm. And during the day, it's a lot easier to judge.
Coach, when it comes to the significance of Colorado or even a Miami, do you think the the animosity, or I guess the best way to put it, hostility, will be a little bit thicker. Nebraska fans are cordial. They applaud the other team. They're welcoming about 99.9% of the time. Do you think it's going to be a crowd with an attitude because of who's coming in?
Well, what happens is I think a lot of these kids, especially out of state, will come in and not even realize what the whole thing's about because they don't have that they aren't around long enough to to get the feeling of what is felt around the state. And I think the same thing goes with them. And a lot of times kids don't pay much attention to it. There's kids that don't, they just play. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, I remember going out, I got a story that I got to tell you. Mike Knox was a freshman. We're playing at Colorado. And they kick off, we kick off, they run it in for a touchdown. We kick off, and I don't remember what happened, but the next time we got the ball on offense, which I think was maybe it was right away the next time they kicked off, and after they scored, and Isaiah fumbled the ball on about the 6 or 7 yard line, and they scored on the next play. So in 3 plays, in the whole thing, they were 14-0. We're behind, and I said, we're going to get our kicked. You know that? Mike Knox is a freshman now. He said, Coach, and he's from Castle Rock, Colorado. He said, Coach, don't worry, this is Colorado. It ended up being like 56-14. I don't know, but we didn't. It was a blowout after that, but that's here you got a freshman telling the coach, "Hey, coach, don't worry about this," and I'll never forget that as long as I live. I think that that he had that much confidence, and plus being from Colorado, and Castle Rock's a pretty good area that's not very happy with Nebraska.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, before we wind it down, Nebraska, a couple of big recruiting items to talk about. They got their 2025 quarterback in TJ Lateef, really talented thrower out of Orange County, Lutheran. And then they're in the running still for the top offensive tackle, a 5-star that decided to do his official visit this weekend. And you've had some experience going against and also being a coach with California quarterbacks. California kids are a nice region to go grab kids from. What do you think it means for Nebraska to be able to get a kid from the West Coast again?
Well, I think it's going to help a little bit. I really think that it's a little bit like recruiting Hawaiian kids. It's the same thing. If you get a few of them and they stick with it and they're here, they can be a big influence too because they got another 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing in California is the fact that they have 30 million people. I mean, and they don't have to go far to recruit. And I know UCLA one time, one of the coaches told me that not one of them was out overnight.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And that's kind of easy recruiting a little bit. I mean, I'm sure there were guys that out, you go to different parts of the state, but they didn't really stay out that much. And they were in a position where players came to them, a lot. And we're in a position where that doesn't happen as much, and so that's the only thing. And you wonder a little bit, what is it going to cut us off a little bit in Texas? Because now the games are on the West Coast, and you wonder how much people are going to, say, well, we don't get to see them play. The only problem is that right now, and it isn't a problem, it's just about every game you can get somewhere on television.
No, absolutely.
So it's a lot easier nowadays.
Coach, we'll check in next week. It was always fun to get caught up. Stay out of the rain, okay?
Well, I'll try. I don't know if I even want to do that. I'd like to stand in it for a while. I think it's been actually kind of warm here, so we'll let it see what happens. But you guys take care of yourselves and keep the tornadoes away from you.
Will do.
Will ya?
You too, Coach. Thanks
Okay.
again.
You guys, okay? Bye.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Welcome in Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore with a Big Red wrap-up at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, good weekend, man. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me as usual. Weekend was good. Chased around a little white ball Saturday morning and then hung out some friends and family Saturday, and then obviously did the whole Mother's Day thing on Sunday, and got to see my mom and then my mother-in-law, and did our thing in the morning. So it was a fun-filled, solid weekend.
Did you lose your debit card this weekend?
Not that I'm aware of. What are you insinuating out here?
Did I really lose it is the question, if I knew exactly where I lost it.
I'm just, Elijah bought Mama Bunny brunch this weekend. He just doesn't know it yet.
All I'm saying is, if you know where you
just left it at the bar.
Yes, that's not losing it if you know where you left it. That's just having somebody caretake your debit card overnight
for a 20% gratuity.
Which it was our good friend Will behind the bar. Yeah. I was going to pay at least 20% anyway.
For sure, just for safekeeping.
Just in case he's listening. I was totally going to pay him 20%.
That's why the question was out there, Jay. Did you ever lose your debit card? We've all done it.
Yeah,
or no.
Knock on wood, hasn't happened a lot. I've had it. I've been hacked a couple times. I had to get new ones. You wake up one morning and you get someone calling you saying, "Hey, are you in Paris spending thousands of dollars?" I'm like, I am not. I'm in Nebraska. I think it's always been, unfortunately, it's the times where you open up a tab and you happen to leave it behind the bar. That's about the times I've lost it. That's not losing it. It's just I forgot to grab it at the end of the night.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Elijah, we're on same wavelengths here.
Well, Jay, it reminds me of the story. This one time I was in high school and I got a call from the fraud detection center. Like, hey, did you try to buy $800 worth of tires in Minneapolis this weekend? And I was like, no. And it got shut down because I was in high school, so I had like maybe $100 to my name. So these poor people they skimmed my card. They got the information. They thought they were going to get themselves some new tires, and they just skimmed the information of the world's brokest man at the time. Like, sorry.
The thing to do is just go on, not that I'm saying rip people off, that's evil, but...
That's not a good way to start.
But go on that flat screen shopping spree. Load up on the iPads, right? I mean, tires? I just bought tires last week and I'm still pissed.
Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. You're just trying to get whatever you can get at that point. Guy must have needed some tires real bad.
Well, good thing is Elijah's debit card was in safekeeping, and away we go. How safe will it be for Buff fans in the second week of September? I'm going night game. The Buffs come to Lincoln. I can't wait. We all can't wait. But there's a special juice factor with night games at Memorial Stadium and big-name opponent.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've hadn't had a ton of them here in recently, just because Nebraska struggled. You have to look back to the Michigan game just a couple years ago. That night game atmosphere was fantastic, and then probably Miami 2014 was one that was right up there with a great night game atmosphere and in a non-conference situation. So, yeah, you were hoping that was going to be a night game, and it was adding up. Just seeing with other games going on that afternoon and other events, you're like, ooh, this is lining up nicely to be a night game in Lincoln, and it is. And I hope it's a rough, rude awakening for the Buffs, man. I can't stand them. I hate them. Always have, always will. Coach Barnett, liked the guy, played golf with him, but, as a Buffs head coach, you always want to beat their asses, right? So, but no, it's good. It's good for the rivalry, if you can call it that, because obviously it was so strong for so long, the Big 8, Big 12, and obviously the last 10 years or more than that, 13 years, hasn't been the same. But that's just what it needs to be. I couldn't imagine it, like last year was an 11 o'clock game. A 2:30 game might have been okay, but you get the night game and you get the Thunderstruck going, that heading in the fourth quarter with the laser light show ordeal. That's gonna be really fun to see. And both teams probably should be 1-0 heading into that one. I think Colorado has a tougher task.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know we have UTEP, but I think Colorado might have a tougher opponent week 1. But that is going to be as the kids say, it's going to be a banger.
Jay, according to Vegas, home field advantage is worth 2.5 to 3.5 points, somewhere in that range. In your experience, is home field advantage for a night game at Memorial Stadium worth more than that? Does that number sound about right to you? What is a night game at Memorial Stadium in terms of advantage from a guy who played on the field in night games at Memorial Stadium?
Gosh, it might get you another point. I don't think it's much more. I don't know. I'm thinking back to my time in night games. We didn't have a ton of them. Maybe some in the non-conference, but even during the conference, it seems like in the Big 12, we had a lot of 11 and 2:30 games. And I think the night games we did have were potentially on the road. I'm thinking at Texas A&M, at Baylor. We always played Colorado in the afternoons on Friday. Rarely ever was a night game. Even Oklahoma's, I think, was during the day. But there's just something. Well, let's be honest. It just gives more people to get that blood thinned out a little bit more. When they're able to, spend tailgate and do to get the energy going. And then it helps when you've always played halfway decent at those night games. So I think a point, maybe a 1.5 more for a night game is probably fair for Memorial Stadium at night, especially with everything they got going now with the technology and the heading into the fourth quarter ordeal.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, I think of the Penn State night game. That was the 2003 season where it was kind of a home and home with the Nittany Lions. 2002 didn't go well out there, the whiteout. What has been the most jacked night game you've been a part of, either as a player or as a fan? I mean, the short list you kind of laid out with 2014 Miami, 2011 Ohio State, that Michigan game in 2021 was incredible, and it lived up. I mean, just back and forth ball game. But player or fan, what's seared into your memory?
That Michigan game just a couple of years ago was electric. Again, I was just trying to jog my memory here of night games that I played. God, I just don't have any specific. It just seems like we always played a ton of games during the day. I wish I had. Mm-hmm. I mean, beating A&M at night was my senior year to lock up the Big 12 North. That was great. I mean, that's an electric atmosphere down there in College Station, but wasn't obviously at home. Gosh, we played USC on the road at night. Not a very electric atmosphere, in my opinion. God dang, I mean, even as a kid going to games, I don't remember. There was a time. Nebraska didn't have lights at the stadium for years, right?
They'd rent them.
Yeah, they'd rent them. It may be for a Colorado game, around Halloween when they usually played. Yeah, but I just wish I had better night games. I mean, we played in some bowl games at night, Alamo Bowls, but that was in a dome.
Yeah.
Man, I don't have a ton. One game that sticks out in my mind is we beat Troy at home my senior year, but it's Troy. We shut them out, but it's just
if we had a kazoo sound effect, we'd make it for you.
Yeah,
Troy.
But yeah, I think Michigan is the one that comes to mind because they're just so recent, and you had that. Should have won that football game, and obviously you know how that ended there in the last couple of minutes with Martinez fumbling. So, but definitely that 2021 is the most recent. It was electric from start to finish, and it was such a really, really good Michigan team, and a team that we know Nebraska that was much better than their record showed that year. They just couldn't finish off a ball game.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay will dive into Circus Sports as they have come out with their over-under. It's at 7.5. It's right there with the SP Plus numbers. And right now, over-under 7.5. What are you taking? We can revisit in August.
Yeah, right now, give me the over, but barely. That's 8. Okay. I think 8 and 4. I've been talking to a lot of people, and obviously they want my my quick temperature check on it. And I think 8 and 4 is very, very realistic, and I don't think it's overshooting it by any means. I think finally when you get your first 3 games, your non-conference games at home, you're not on the road, you're not playing over in Ireland or whatever it may be, but it's finally an opportunity for this team to gather momentum. We don't have a Michigan for our first conference opponent. We don't have we don't have an Ohio. We have Ohio State later in the year. Let's be honest, the last 4 games of the year are going to be tough. Maybe UCLA is not as demanding as what they potentially could be. I think they'll struggle a little bit this year. But when you finish with Ohio State and Wisconsin and Iowa, those are the Iowa and Wisconsin. Those are toss-ups in my opinion. They're not going to bite at unless something crazy happens. I think Ohio State's the best football team, not only in the Big Ten but in the nation in 2024. So I think if they get off to a good start, and for those first 7 games, 6-1 is very, very attainable. I stub your toe in some of those non-conference road games in that stretch, but you just look at going on the road at USC, going on the road at Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa. So I think you might be able to get Wisconsin and Iowa. So I think 8 and 4 is. Mm-hmm. I don't feel too uncomfortable with that record at this point.
It's Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, talking Husker football. Circus Sportsbook dropping their over-under win totals for the year. Nebraska at 7.5. And Jay, as you look at the schedule, is there one game more than any other game this year that you think is a swing game? A game that if Nebraska gets it, you think there's a really good odds they get to that 8 and 4 mark, as you said, and if they don't get it, they might fall short of that. Well, what game on the schedule do you look at as being that potential swing game?
Yeah, just looking at it. Gosh, I think if they can go on the road, I know it's later in the year, and this is the 10th game of the season. But I like their chances to go on the road to beat USC this year. I think that's a very attainable game. I think that's one that majority of people I would say the SC's favored, obviously, right now. But I just look at that. SC's trying to figure out who they are. New defensive coordinator, you lose Caleb Williams. Lincoln Riley hasn't gotten off to quite the start that he wanted to. This is a new year and a new conference. But that's kind of later in the year. That one could really, you get that one, that could finish off the year nicely. But then I look, just looking at the schedule after I just pulled it up, maybe that October 19th game at Indiana, that's another tough ball game there that they come away with that one because you just, you have to go to Ohio State the next week. The potential to kind of look ahead, maybe, but go on the road and beat Indiana. That's never. I think we played there one time since been in the Big Ten, and we got that one with Coach Riley. at the helm. So I think that one as well is one that they get that things are looking nice. But they go to go on the road next week, that following week to Ohio State. Don't feel great about that one. Feel good about UCLA. Feel good about you going on the road to USC, and then the Wisconsin. Finishing with Wisconsin, Nebraska. We've struggled. The last for a while with both those teams. So, but it's fun to talk about. This conversation wasn't being had a few years ago, and that's a credit to Coach Rule and his staff and and the effort that's kind of been put forth. And it's only May 13th, but man, I can't wait for August 31st to roll around the corner and get this thing going.
Jay Moore's with us. Few minutes. Hail Varsity Radio at Jay Moore 44 on Twitter, where you follow him, can watch him with Big Red Wrap Up during the season. Nebraska is in on their 2025 quarterback, and I know you're a measured recruiting guy when it comes to hype and hyperbole with all position groups, but specifically quarterback. And I kind of step back and go, wow, fellas, just for a moment, because you've got Dylan, you've got Kalen, and Nebraska ain't resting. They're going after a four-star quarterback that all the big dogs, all the quarterback factories liked enough to offer, okay? It's a kid that Prime in Colorado wanted as the next Shador, okay, because they were in on him early. Nebraska, though, and Langsdorf and company said, let's go get him. And Nebraska worked hard. And Nebraska's had their fair share of hits from the left coast at quarterback. I mean, Adrian was good, Taylor Martinez good, Steve Taylor good. And there's some comps out there to the C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen type. Enough mobility, not quite Josh Allen, but mobile enough, but more so a Stroud. I love that Nebraska's bringing in a guy that is not bashful, doesn't care who's here, wants to come in and compete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, some people are thinking with Rayola and Kalen both in the room, thinking, geesh, he could have probably went to some other places and maybe had a clearer path to playing time. But I think that also just shows who we have, on that offensive staff and just overall on staff in general, and just the message that's being communicated to these kids that I think you saw with even Lateef was like, they made me feel wanted. Mm-hmm. The effort was put forth. And I just, like I said before, I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but the staff just, I think, feels very appreciative of the opportunity to be able to coach here. And I think that message is getting relayed across to recruits how great of a place this is, even though with the struggles we've had, for the last 6, 7, 8 years. But the ability to communicate, to tell them how it is, tell them the process that you have in mind for them. And yeah, guess what? You're going to have great players to compete with. But if you want to come to a great program and hopefully where things are going, where you're always in it and you're winning 8, 9, 10, 11, hopefully 12 ball games a year, there's going to be great players everywhere. You want to be a part of that. You want to compete because they're going to get you better. This coaching staff's going to get you better. Those guys in that QB room are going to make you better because you're going to have to be on point. You're going to be on your game. You want to be able to play. You have to go above and beyond expectations to compete. And then that makes you better overall. And guess what? That increases your chances of being an NFL draft pick. So with all that, and there's a lot there, but that's just part of the plan and the process with the staff. And I just feel good about what's being communicated to these young kids from, a maturity standpoint, from an expectation standpoint, that nothing's being promised as of right now. But guess what? Come here and compete, and you're going to win football games, and you're going to increase your chances of being able to play on Sundays, which in some cases, that's more important than NIL money to some of these kids.
It's Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, before we get you out, a lot's been made recently of Nebraska's, maybe not a lot, but it's been made, the Nebraska roster size. They're over on scholarships. That seems to be a part of Matt Rule's vision, bringing the most competition possible. Those guys near the bottom of the 85, you're going to get moved to an NIL-type scholarship. As we talk about bringing in competition for the quarterback and really competition all across the field, what is your thoughts on that? Nebraska exploiting that loophole, and I guess bringing it back to the 90s with the big roster size, getting more guys involved in practice and just getting more guys on your team overall.
Yeah, well, that was part of the process of Coach Osborne, and at times there was over 200 guys on that roster, and it was the walk-on program was such a huge part of this program, because you would have 50, 60 walk-ons come through, and you might only hit on 4 or 5 of them. But that's, through the percentages, right, that you're able to hit on some of those guys. Obviously quite different nowadays, and you have to be. It's just roster management and trying to control all these kids. But no, I love it. It's no stone being left unturned. Let's increase every opportunity, chance, whatever it is, to get as many good players we have. If they work out, great. If they don't, so be it. They can transfer. They can do whatever they want. I just in this day and age of college football, it's just, again, we have to do whatever. We don't have a huge metropolis to go recruit to, and like some of these schools have. So you got to just try to get the best talent you can on the roster. So love the idea, love the concept, and hopefully it pays off. You'll start to see some of these kids that play later in their career that were some of these guys on the bottom, but they figure it out, they mature, they understand it, the game slows down for them, and then boom, they're playing special teams. All of a sudden, boom, they're backing up on a defensive, in the secondary or linebacker or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're starting maybe the next year. And that's just kind of the process, what it was back in the, in the 80s and 90s. Guys were, you didn't play. It was rare to play as a true freshman. It was rare to play as a redshirt freshman. Usually didn't play till your sophomore, junior, senior year. So that's just going to be the game plan for those kids that go through that role.
Jay, we'll check in next week. Thanks for a few minutes, bud.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So tomorrow we'll have former executive director with the NBA, but now in charge of basketball with the SEC. But he's a former Nebraska quarterback. Garth Glissman going to join us. Michael Brunt's going to be with us. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic will also step in. Big thanks to Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt, Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska, Rivals, and awesome to get caught up with everybody. Mr. Tritz, of course, with the Lincoln Saltdogs as their season 23 underway, and that is fantastic. All of your comments as well in the stream, so many. We tried to get as many as we could. Also with email, we'll carry it over tomorrow. If I had to just do my short list of top night game environments, Colorado 92 is obvious for sure. The Miami game 2014 edges out Michigan 2021 for me. It also edges out Ohio State 2011, despite the comeback being incredible with Rex and company in 2011 against Ohio State. Number 3 was my first night game of substance. I think I went as a kid in 87 for UCLA, which was cool. But number 1 or number 2, Washington came to town in 1991. Steve Epman, Bino Bryant, Mark Brunell, Billy Joe Gunrack / Hobart. And that Washington team went on to win the national championship, and they were incredible despite being beaten pretty soundly for the first half and the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. And then they turned it on. Great Washington team, but that juice, that's when you make the cut as a kid. hey, Mom and Dad says you're going. We're taking both of you. My brother and I got to go to that. That's when they still rented stadium lights. 91, I believe. I know the year for sure. I don't know if they stopped renting lights after 91, but it was big time. Nebraska lost that night, but it was pretty cool. I think almost 700 yards of total offense put up. We didn't bring that up to Uncle Charlie. They tried. Washington was just damn good. Reminder to buckle up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives, prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. So get the podcast. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Download, subscribe, give us a rating. Good, bad, or ugly. We'll take the feedback. Love to hear it. And always like and subscribe to the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. Give that a follow. And as always, can check out the show on different platforms. AM 590, Omaha's ESPN can hear us up there and watch us on their Twitter feed, KFOR, Facebook, and Twitter. Dear friends in Central Nebraska, Duda and Company, Cardi Hastings, Grand Island, ESPN Superstation in Central Nebraska, and our friends at News Talk 900 in Columbus. We've got to huddle up and not leave our debit card, but it'd be fun to do a summer tavern tour.
We've talked about this for a long time.
Around the state.
Talked about this for a long time.
We could do it.
The question
And last year I kind of did.
Well,
before with Junior playing baseball.
That's what the problem's going to say is that I was back in studio, and I look at this summer with our good friend Connor Clark coming up just after us here locally in a Saltdogs broadcast. He's going to be working Saltdogs all summer long, which means this would turn into the Chris Schmidt Tavern tour while Elijah's stuck in studio. So that's a slight problem.
I can't do that. I can't go solo on that. We'll have to huddle up.
Well, you can. It could make it more fun.
We'll talk tomorrow at 4. Thanks for tuning in.